I'm using my hand to bring us to order. This is the meeting of the Town Board of Commissioners of the Town of Pittsboro, our regular meeting for Monday, August the 22nd, 2022. And as is our custom, we'll begin our meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Farrell, will you lead us in the pledge?
Would everyone rise for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You have your agenda before you. And I'll entertain a motion to either approve the agenda or modify it in some way.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with a modification to add a resolution for Chris Kennedy.
Is there a second to Kyle's motion?
Second.
Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. I'm going to come down. This is the first time we've done something like this. So I'm going to go down and do the resolution, the first resolution. I guess it would be good if we would approve it first.
Sure.
It's been in your package, this first resolution. And so is there a motion to approve this resolution on behalf of the board?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And so I've asked the Reverend Peter McDonald to join me here. So Reverend McDonald, it is my pleasure on behalf of the Town Board of Pittsboro to present to you a resolution by the Town Board honoring the Pittsboro Baptist Church's 175th anniversary. Whereas the Pittsboro Baptist Church is celebrating its 175th anniversary during the year 2022. And whereas a group of families organized the Baptist Church in the town of Pittsboro in 1847. Whereas a meeting house was completed on Salisbury Street in 1847, where the congregation worshiped until 1948, when the building was raised. And whereas on the same property, a new church building was completed in 1949, where the congregation still meets to this day. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the town and its citizens, met this day to honor this significant anniversary for the Pittsboro Baptist Church and extend our best wishes to the congregation in the memorable occasion of its 175th anniversary of the church in the year 2022. This resolution was approved at the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the town held on August 22, 2022, which resolution shall be entered in the town's public records and copies sent to the officials of the Pittsboro Baptist Church. It will be signed by me and our town clerk, and thank you and congratulations. And if the board would approve the resolution that we have developed for Chris Kennedy, is there a motion? Unanimous.
So moved.
And second,
Seconded.
and nods, and yeses,
Yes.
and Chris Kennedy, if you would come. This is a resolution by the town of Pittsboro, North Carolina, honoring the devotion and accomplishments of Christopher F. Kennedy. Whereas Christopher F. Kennedy was hired by the Pittsboro Town Board of Commissioners as town manager on July 13th, 2020. And whereas, in the words of former Mayor Jim Noss, Chris Kennedy was hired to be our town manager at a critical time. And because of his excellent skills, and because we thought he could hit the ground running, and he did. Whereas, in the words of Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, it is important to recognize the ability to skillfully handle all the unresolved projects and issues, pulling them together in a short period of time and heading them in the right direction for review and resolution. There is as you could imagine, a fairly lengthy explanation in the words of Commissioner Kyle Shipp. And so I will not be reading that entire thing, but it is, you'll enjoy reading that at your, in your retirement years. None. Whereas, in the words of Mayor Cindy Perry, after the election of 2021, Chris Kennedy brought me back into the town fold by a series of onboarding sessions in which he introduced staff, reviewed the results of his work in 2021, and brought me and Commissioner James Vose up to date on the issues, concerns, and items pending and those completed. It was an amazing process that gave us information to settle into our posts and ready for our work for the town. I had never had that kind of thorough process in any setting before. And the other commissioners agree with these statements and we all join together to thank you, Chris, for the positive impact you have had for Pittsboro. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the town and its citizens, met this day to honor the accomplishments of Christopher F. Kennedy, and the mayor and the board, as constituted at the time of hire and as constituted today, extend profound thanks to Christopher F. Kennedy for his devotion to the town of Pittsboro, his betterment for the town, and the professional and personal friendships forged through his years of service. This resolution was approved at the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the town of Pittsboro held on August 22, in which resolution shall be entered into the town records and a copy presented to you. And it will be presented to you, but tonight we'll just shake your hand and thank you for everything. Our next matter on the agenda is Citizens Matters. And the first thing is the manager update.
Well, I guess I don't get to leave like other people who get resolutions for them and just get to leave after that. First off, I really appreciate the board doing that. It is very much unnecessary, but certainly a sincere thank you from me. That certainly means a lot. And again, as we talked a little bit about last week and the conversations that have ensued since, I hope that I've been proud to serve you, and I hope I've just done a good job for y'all in the town. I've tried every day. Again, There are times that I like to say we don't fail. I say it to my staff all the time, and Shorty will cooperate it, that we never really fail. We're either just more or less successful than we thought we were going to be. And so there are times we've been more successful and sometimes less than successful. But I have tried to serve this community well and work very hard, and will continue to work hard for as long as I'm here. And even when I'm not on the payroll, I will still do everything I can to work hard for this community, because I care a lot about it. I care a lot about the people, and I want to see this community succeed. So it's a lifelong thing for me, regardless of any W-2 status with the town. A couple updates for the board this evening. One is obviously our setup. We tried to avoid the stage situation. I don't want the board to feel like that was a complete switcheroo after the feedback from last meeting. But Colby and I certainly worked with the folks here at the Ag Center. We were trying to find a proper setup. Being able to accommodate screens as well as accommodating seating for the general public. So we appreciate your patience with the setup tonight, and certainly would love to have any feedback you may have. Similarly, when we went back to in-person, but in a more split hybrid environment, there were some growing pains with the setup, and we certainly appreciated the board's patience with that as well as the public's. So again, we look forward to your feedback on this. If something hasn't met the mark, and you'll probably feel that more and more as the night goes on, we'll be happy to adjust, recalibrate, and try to work with the fine folks here at the Ag Center that have been just super helpful for us. We went back in person for our April 25th meeting, and Laura Lee and her staff here have just been tremendous. So a big thank you to y'all for helping us muddle through this and trying to be responsive to the needs of the public. In addition to the already mentioned adjustment to the agenda, we did make some adjustments in the last 24 hours. The most up-to-date version of the agenda is a V3, which is for those who are frequent customers of the town website. That's just version 3. We've removed 3 sets of minutes. We're pretty close, but we wanted to give the board some time to review those. We also promoted an item onto the agenda that would normally be part of my update. We continue to get very close, and hopefully closer every second, to delivery of our GAC project. And so I invited Reed Barton with CDM Smith to speak to the board directly about that, as well as so the public can listen in and allow the board to answer any questions. So we've moved our 9/11 Memorial Foundation folks to miscellaneous number 2, moved Reed Barton to miscellaneous number 1 with CDM Smith, and moved miscellaneous up underneath the consent agenda to try to have those items discussed earlier in the night for folks who may want to listen in. So we appreciate, again, some patience there with us making some last minute adjustments to the agenda. I will refrain from my GAC comments until Reed. I'll save those for when I kind of open up that agenda item and provide my update at that time. With regard to our force main project, another critical project for us, a few updates for the board and the public at large. We continue to make good progress in terms of getting closer to bid with that. We hope to have all of our easements secured. We had one of the really big ones in Lee County. Everything should be pretty well buttoned up with that. We had some good progress on Friday with that one. We're waiting on paperwork for the other side of the road. A small little easement across Lee Brick. That one, we've got an agreed upon amount. We just are waiting on the paperwork to be sent so we can close that easement. We've got another update meeting tomorrow morning with Wooten. So look forward to that conversation with our staff, which is comprised of myself, Kent, Morgan, and Adam. We'll be meeting with Charlie Davis and his team at Wooten, going over the latest and seeing how we can push that forward. We had some progress there. We got an email. Nothing. We're waiting on the official letter, but we have an email that we've gone through the clearinghouse. Everything appears to be going well through there. That we are going to get an approval on our permit. So that's a tremendous step forward, and allows us to actually one of the main key points allow us to go to bid is having that permit in hand. So we should have that really any day now. The fact that Ken put in an email last week tells me that they are basically putting the final touches on that. There was a comment from the clearinghouse, but only one we saw was from DOT, basically suggesting that we had to get DOT permits, and we were already aware of that. So it seems to be a pretty benign comment through the clearinghouse. Another market update for the board is I got an email on Friday from the state that approved our additional $5 million in loan. If you recall, we asked for that earlier this summer to the SRF section chief. So that allows our loan to go from 21.65 to 26.65. And again, no one's overly excited about having to pay that much for the project, but it's comforting to know if the project is up to that amount, we've got the loan proceeds to do it. The town has a bit of work. We have to refile our application with the state and from the loan application side. A formality of procedure there from all accounts, discussing this with the LGC as well as DWI. So we look forward to having that, but that's an update that's been available in the last 48 hours or so. So we remain on course. My goal is to have us out to bid here in early to mid-September. Obviously contingent on a few factors here, waiting on the state, waiting to get the easements closed. We also received preliminary consent from DOT or DEQ on our 401 permit with the revised route. And so we have a 401 and a 404 for review from the environmental side with the Corps of Engineers. DEQ is now sending that. So I signed a letter last week providing it from DEQ's response to the Corps of Engineers. And that's going to be much needed. We don't need it now, but our current 401, 404 expires in March of 23. And obviously we'll be under construction at that time. So we want to make sure we have no hiccups along the way. So we want to go ahead and clear that step and ask for the extension before we even get started. So we've got time to remedy anything there. So I think that's a kind of a hot list there of what's been going on with that project. Again, we hope to have more information tomorrow. My intention tomorrow is kind of get a 30-day tracking with Wooten and see, okay, we presented to the board a few months ago. Y'all remember that conversation that Charlie Davis provided to the board with a timeline, and it was talking about a September bidding time. So it's crunch time now, and I want to get a more formalized and detailed checklist to both for the board and for the public's consideration where we're at with it. So those are all the updates I have for you right now.
Thank you, Chris. Under my updates, first of all, I have asked John Bonitz if he would take over the position of liaison to the Chatham County Climate Change Advisory Committee. I was thinking that with the upcoming processes, that I might need a little more availability, and therefore, John, you were already serving in many respects on the committee anyway, and checking in and being on several of the Zoom meetings. They're going to now meet in person though. So thank you, John, for your willingness to take that on. During the last 2 weeks, I have been on WCHL, Chatham Roundup, and that's a radio program out of Chapel Hill, which is, they're wanting to do every week interview, and I kidded with them and I said, wait a minute, we're not that big yet. But we'll see what their schedule allows. On the 11th, I met with members of the Habitat for Humanity. On the 12th, I met with Colby Sawyer regarding what we may call everything you've ever wanted to know about recycling or talking trash with the mayor. We're just not sure what, but the idea here is to expand our knowledge of what we can do in our recycling program that will be better for us and better for the company that collects at GFL. On the 13th, I attended a back to school event at the fairgrounds, and it was just a very pleasant afternoon with the sheriff and the superintendent of schools, and members of a local church had put it on. it was just an excellent event. And I do thank Commissioner Vose for sponsoring one of the events at the fairground that day. On the 16th, I think we all stretched ourselves between the DOT meeting and the downtown visioning. And then on the 17th, I met with members of the Grand Trees of Chatham County, very interested in working together with the town. Grand Trees is in either the selection process or the maintenance of trees that might be planted, in accordance with our extended budget for tree planting. It gives us a very nice opportunity to bring people in with grand trees that might be able to help us to keep them vibrant, our new plantings vibrant. So those are all the events I've been to. I would then pass the baton to Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor Perry. I actually don't have anything to report. Our Triangle J Council of Governments meeting is scheduled for Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So, and it is an open meeting and we can look at it via Zoom. So you all are always invited. So I will be on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonitz.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrell.
I attended the PBA meeting August the 16th. They had a gentleman, Ryan Crather, that I think that's his last name, not really sure, from Survey Pro. And they gave a nice little talk regarding the disasters and all, and it gave a really good upbeat. It's called the ERP program. It's Emergency Response Program. It's offered at no charge to businesses that want to, it comes in and goes through any issues where you have a flood problem, fire problem, anything. He gives you a first activation and when to call and who to call and their number and all like that. And like I said, that's no charge. And it's just for businesses only right now. The 751, they did talk about the Coca-Cola plant coming in on 751. They said northeast corner. So don't quote me on that, Chatham Record.
That's correct.
Okay, quote me on that, Chatham Record. But I did attend the DOT meeting, very interesting, and downtown vision meeting. It was a long day here, but very, very enjoyable. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shipp.
Yes, on Monday, August 15th, I attended a Wake County meeting through a connection I made with that leadership program. And they're talking about how they want to expand their approach regionally with water resources. So but no news for us there, but interesting discussion. And then on the 16th, I also stopped into the DOT meeting and attended the Downtown Vision Forum. I think the overwhelming comment I heard after was fun. So that was great to hear and appreciate Teresa getting that together. There is a survey still available on downtown Pittsboro and what people want to see out there. If you look up downtown Pittsboro on Facebook, I think is the most reliable way to get to that. On Wednesday, the 17th, I went to the Chatham County EDC meeting. They have hired a new project manager, Philip Thompson. He's a Pittsboro resident here, lives locally, and is jumping in with both feet with everything that's going on with the EDC. VinFast did acquire the property out at the site, so $44 million to acquire that property. Coca-Cola is on the northeast corner, confirmed. And at CCCC, they were talking about how, everything they do and really everything we all do needs to be regional now. So it can't be confined to a municipality or a county or even larger divisions as we work on these projects that affect multiple counties, multiple regions. So they're really active in taking a more regional approach to everything. I think that's smart. Chatham County Schools said enrollment is up 200 students this year. And Siler City has hired a consultant to work on their long range plan. And then they also, the state barred them for new sewer permits in June. And so now they have a 90-day plan to make improvements to their system to get that bar lifted to continue on with with all the projects we know are happening out there. Just under concerns, meeting minutes, but I know that's a known one. I'm curious about any enforcement of the minimum housing code now that we've passed that a month or so ago. And as we said, it's Chris's last meeting, so I brought a selection of my comments that I put here in the thing. I'll just read through these real quick. No, but yes, last meeting. We'll see you around.
Just make it hurt.
Commissioner Vose?
The Arts Council has not met since we've met last. I did attend the last Harpo meeting. I don't have anything Pittsboro related to report.
Do we have anyone on the list for speaking under the public comment section?
No, ma'am.
If not, then we will proceed to the consent agenda. This is an opportunity for us to act on the consent agenda or ask what items be removed for additional consideration. What is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Mayor, may I offer one comment on the consent agenda? This was pointed out to me earlier, and I didn't make the adjustment when I drafted the packet materials. With the future land use planning committee, there's a resolution in there that designates the number of people on that committee. I would offer that if it stays as is, or 16 people listed, that we adjust that resolution to just be indicative of whatever number that the board selects. So if it's approved on consent, I think we just say that number is adjusted accordingly. I think that's a pretty benign adjustment, but did want to make that point of clarification clear.
And I'm sorry, I was unable to hear Chris.
Chris, Mr. Kennedy, I appreciate you mentioning that. I'd like to ask that one be pulled from consent, and also that item number 2 be pulled from consent. So that would be the Northwood MUPD minor deviations I'd like to discuss as a board, and the future land use plan steering committee I'd like to discuss as a board.
Madam Mayor, I would recommend that we put those under new business.
New business.
And I will lean on the board's preference of when you would like to handle new business.
All right. Is there a motion by the board to approve the consent agenda items with the exception of the Northwood minor deviations and the steering committee, future land use steering committee appointments?
I'll move for consent, for approval of the consent agenda with those changes.
Motion by Commissioner Bonitz,
Second.
seconded by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we will move those 2 items then over to the new business. I'm not sure that I have the most recent version of the agenda, and so I was wondering if we could roll the agenda forward here. Is that possible? What I'm looking at?
Yes, ma'am. So the next item we have is we've moved miscellaneous
Right.
up beneath the consent agenda. So the first item we have on that is Mr. Reed Bart with CDM Smith to present to the board about the latest with the GAC project and just a general overview and summary of that project as well.
Right.
Can we just scroll it on the screen, please?
It's scrolled on mine, so I'm not sure how it scrolls on yours.
So Reed Barton, would you come forward and address the board, please?
A couple of PowerPoint slides to share. Part of the staff, they said I can't load it from my Zoom, so I just signed into the Zoom meeting. Think that someone give me access to share my screen.
Raise your hand on there. There should be a permission to share your screen.
Heather Meacham's running the meeting from home, so what the board has in front of it is the YouTube feed. So I think it may be a bit delayed.
and whether
I see your hand raised. There you go.
Yes,
We can, I think, but I'm not sure that microphone,
Yes, it's working.
it is work.
You can hear it
okay.
for whatever that's worth. There should be a prompt to share screen. Something's happening. So we can read.
Within this presentation. That's it. You guys don't see what's up on there?
No, we got the Zoom is on this and then the YouTube is on their screen, so it's a bit delayed. As you might imagine, none of us actually watch the YouTube during these meetings, so sometimes we don't understand that there's a lag between the two.
And we're going to need for you to speak more loudly.
Okay, I said, thank you. I said, 10-minute also on your end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or go back to the main
Mhm.
page and on your far left,
You can just click on that
there's
YouTube.
a button, scroll up a little bit. On the left there, that orange button, down bottom left. Or bottom left, agendas and minutes. There we go.
You can click the YouTube at the top of the screen.
Yeah. Okay, it's August 22nd. Yeah, click on the words rather than the date. There we go. I think Zoom link is the very bottom item.
I'm gonna take the liberty of saying that one of the adjustments for the board is not to have the YouTube be on the screen in front of it.
Well, I think it's good actually, because that's what the public is probably seeing, which is not correct. It might turn out. So I think it's good.
It's informative.
While we're waiting here, I wanted to introduce Carl Schaefer to anybody on the board that does not know him already. I know, Kyle, you've served with him on the planning board, and Jay Farrell, I assume as long as you have, and Pamela Baldwin, do you know him as well? Okay, I just introduced you to Commissioner Vose, but you are now the vice chair of our planning board, is that correct? Under the directorship of Eric Braun. So thank you and congratulations for your new responsibilities. And it was Carl who asked on behalf of his church for us to do the resolution for the Baptist church.
I can proceed without the visual, but I just think it'd be a lot easier for you to understand what I'm saying through the visuals. Let me know if I just go on.
She can.
Here we go.
It's here.
Mhm.
Got it?
Should have offered that a few minutes ago, Reed.
Okay, thank you. So Manager Kennedy asked me to give a project update on the grain activated carbon system, which is phase one of addressing the PFAS contamination in the town's drinking water. So we've got some good news. I'll get to, this is a fairly brief update. I want to start with 2 or 3 slides overview, I think, because this is a public presentation. It's important to get context with it. So I've got a few slides on overview, and then I'll get straight to the status of the project, the schedule. As you guys are probably aware, we're currently a little over a month behind. I'll talk to that and explain the issues that we've been dealing with, and answer any questions that you have. So project overview. So the town of Pittsboro's water treatment plant is permitted to produce 2 million gallons a day of drinking water. NGV stands for 1 million gallons a day. The source of that water is from the Haw River. The Haw River has a lot of travels through part of the industrial area within the state. And in that area, it picks up a number of contaminants. Many of them are removed by the current treatment plant, and some of them that aren't fall into a category that we refer to as emerging contaminants, unregulated contaminants. The ones that have been the focus and the challenge have been a class of chemicals called PFAS, which stands for per polyfluoroalkyl substances. There's about 9,000 of them. Most of them are made on accident in manufacturing processes. And then another one, which is referred to as 1,4-dioxane. Town of Pittsboro concluded, after completing pilot study along with city and Smith, that advanced treatment was needed at the water plant to address these unregulated contaminants. And GAC was specifically selected to be the first phase of addressing PFAS contaminants. On the right side of this slide, this is, I think, important to pause on this. So when decisions were being made, a goal was set. We needed a target to aim for. So the goal, the treatment goal was set as written here: 90% removal of all identified PFAS compounds, some together. That's still a goal. That's what we're moving towards. What I want to point out, the last bullet on the right side here, is that 1 month ago, the EPA announced an updated draft health advisory level for the compounds PFAS, POA, and they announced final health advisory levels for Gen X and PFAS. The last 2, Gen X and PFAS, are not really an issue for this group. The first 2 are PFAS and POA are 2 of your problem contaminants. The EPA, so I have a slide on this. It's important to know that what the EPA has done in the last month and is doing going forward may impact your strategy. It may cause you to take a step back and say, do we need to modify our strategy? So the current project is a
Reed.
plan build of
Reed, sorry, just one clarification. That's a minimum 90% removal, correct?
yes, so what we did was we did 8 months of testing of your water going through small treatment system that mimic large ones. And we looked at what would it take to remove this to 90%. And at the end, what was recommended is you have 2 paths forward. You can either couple 3 technologies together. It was activated carbon, ion exchange, and UV lamps, UV ALD, or reverse osmosis. So there are 2 options. Reverse osmosis treats the best, create the best outcome. It is going to be the most expensive and the most difficult to permit. What was concluded at the end, and I don't want to put words in the board's mouth, but what I understand the conclusion was CDM moved forward with constructing activated carbon, the first of the 3 components that go together. And we'll continue to monitor what the EPA does. The GAC will do a substantial job of removing PFAS. It won't necessarily remove 100% of it. It will knock it down significantly. And if circumstances change, we can reevaluate the decision of whether to go to reverse osmosis or not. So I'll explain what the EPA has done, and I believe it's on the next slide after this. But so we are moving forward in the direction of activated carbon, ion exchange, which is a visible filtration media. We're running the water filter media that's grabbing that things up. And then the third step is UV lamps. That the UV is ultraviolet light lamps and moving to break down the electrical dioxide. And then our reverse osmosis is this technology that does it all in one swoop. It's probably twice as expensive. Okay, so we move forward with the installation of what we call contactors. The schematic is shown here. These are 14-foot wide diameter pills, steel pills. They're 28 feet tall, very large, filled with filtration media. In this case, it's carbon, activated carbon. These vessels were designed so that you could put carbon in it as they have currently now, or you could also later decide to replace the carbon with ion exchange media. The ultimate, what the pilot study recommended is that you run them in tandem. You run through carbon, then you run through ion exchange to get the highest removal of PFAS possible. But there are funding limitations to what the town could afford in a quick manner. And so the town could afford to install gap contactors immediately when that's what we do. All right, so let me just briefly talk about the EPA did. So on June 15th, just a month ago, EPA announced an update to its health advisory levels. Health advisory levels are a reflection of what EPA believes are the level to have absolutely no negative effect on a human who drinks this water for 70 years, a couple liters a day. That's how it would be a long discussion to explain how they're calculating. They look at vulnerable populations, pregnant women, children. They look at drinking the water for 70 years, and they say, what's the risk? Regulations are never set at that lowest level. In other words, the number you're going to have to hit in the future to removing PFAS to a certain level is not going to be the health advisory level. In a lot of cases, the health advisory level is impractical. So they prior to June last month, the health advisory level was 70 parts per trillion. They lowered it by more than 1,000 times to 0.004 and 0.02. The practical side of this, that we can't even measure that. We can't confirm yes or no that we've treated it to that level. So there's a practical side to the sub-advisory level that, you know, it's more of a wait and see. We need to wait and see what the actual regulations of EPA ends up being. But I guess my point in bringing it up is that I think the town should be aware that EPA, this is going to the third bullet here on the slide. The EPA has said that they are going to set an actual regulation, what we call an NCM, an actual regulation of how much PFAS you have to drink. And they told us that they're going to give us a draft of that by the end of this year. So I think it's a wait and see what they do, but hopefully in the next couple of months we find out if what the regulatory limits for PFAS and control are, and we can evaluate what this system can do with that new regulation.
And Reed, if I may interject for a quick second, the board may recall when this came out, we had a few email conversations about this and talking about the feasibility of 0.004 and 0.02. To give, and one of the examples I referenced was the health advisory level for lead is 0. I won't argue that 0.004 is discernibly different than 0, but the MCL for lead is 15. So that factors in some of the actual cost feasibility of the regulations that go in there. So town staff is expecting, and I'm sure Mr. Barton's well in tune to that, a similar MCL level. That's what we actually have to achieve with our treatment processes, and to kind of loop in other conversations that the town has been kept abreast of these things through our association with NCWQA, which is the association that Greensboro is actually paying the membership dues for us. So that's helped us keep clued into these types of things. The NCWQA has legal counsel and other professionals that are constantly reviewing these things. So they're able to boil it down into bite-sized things. So our staff isn't having to, read EPA policy and legislation that's working around there. We get kind of the Cliff Notes version of it and are allowed to dive in further from there. So I just wanted to kind of reintroduce that to the board's frame of reference, as well as corroborate what Mr. Barton's saying, because we're following this along as well with our NCWQA contacts.
Okay, so that's the end of that. Certainly able to answer questions about that. So the project status, the GAC system is installed. Caveats. It operated today for the first time for 1 hour. So the town has produced one of the roughly 6 to 8 hours the town has produced water today, and 1 hour that water was moved through the GAC system. The GAC system is planned to be put into continuous operation this week on Wednesday. That is pending. There are a couple of things that will happen between Tuesday and Wednesday that involve 4 different subcontractors that need to coordinate. As long as everything goes to plan, Wednesday it should be producing water treated through the GAC. And by Thursday, able to make an announcement to the public that it's in operation. The system initially will be limited. It's intended to be a 1.5 million gallon a day system. It will initially be limited to 1 million gallon a day. We are waiting on delivery of the second of 2 parts, which is one of the holdups that we had. It's just the manufacturing. So this, if you haven't been to the site or folks watching online, this is a picture of the tanks. They're pretty large, and it's very similar to the filters you put in your refrigerator, containing activated carbon. It's a lot more expensive and a lot more complex. This truck here that's shown Calhoun carbon. That's where the carbon was purchased. This is a picture of the picture on the right here is a diver contractor going into, this is the bottom floor of the water treatment plant. And if you look there, the floor has been sawed, a hole has been sawed within the floor of that picture. It's going into essentially the basement is full of water. It's part of the treatment process. He's gonna go in there and he's installing the platforms that the pumps attached to. The reason we do it with a diver, the diver gets scrubbed down with chlorine, bleach before it goes in. The reason we do it with the diver is because the channel he is going to install it in cannot be taken offline. You would shut the entire production of water down, you shut that particular channel down. So some of the construction is complex and be done with that. Picture on the left is another one of the problem issues. These are the electric drives that run the pumps. It took an exceptionally long time to obtain. All right, so the project schedule. So manufacturing delays caused by supply chain disruptions have been widespread the last year and a half. The overall construction schedule has been delayed due to late delivery of key components to the system, mainly the feed pumps and the electric drives that drive the feed pumps. So CM Smith's been working with town staff and with our subs and our manufacturers to keep everything moving. We have installed a temporary pump to work on startup and testing of the system while the final pumps were unavailable, as well as the drives to run them unavailable. We've adjusted the schedule. We've got about 2 months left of work because we switched our schedule around in order to, once things showed up on site, move all resources to trying to get one engine flow going through the gas system. And we've had some success at putting pressure on manufacturers. When we first were notified that the pumps would be unavailable until the fall, we worked hard to locate and find a pump that was adequate on a shelf, I believe it was in California, and have it purchased and shipped to us. Only one was available in the whole country. The original ones that we ordered are still being manufactured on our legal. So this is my last slide. So this just is a little more meat on the bone of what's been going on with the schedule. So the GAC feed pumps were supposed to be delivered on site April 22nd. They were actually delivered on site July 14th. We only received one of them so far. Two to get the system fully operated. The electric drives were supposed to arrive on site May 16th. They actually were delivered last week. They will be fully installed by tomorrow, and we should start testing them. The two GAC vessels are fully, everything else is fully installed. Everything else in the system that supports it is installed and ready to go. So the overall timeline that we walked through over the last year is last August. The town authorized CM Smith to purchase the activated carbon vessels early. That was a great move by all parties involved. They took 10 months to arrive on the site. It took a bit longer than we anticipated, but the early purchase made them not delay the project. We began official construction in December. This past December, originally supposed to be done and not totally done with water, beneficial use. You're getting 1.5 MGD of treated water by July 21st. Now it's going to be August 25th. I think that's a success story with the supply chain issues that we've had. Thankful that this week will be having treated water running through the gap. The new substantial completion date is what I don't have an answer for you today. Substantial completion is a term that means you have full use of the system. We may not have every drop of paint put on the pipe. There may be, we may be still seeding or doing things that to clean up the site, but you are using the facilities we constructed. We won't be able to hit that date until the next couple of months. And so that's why I cannot give you a final answer on our substantial completion date. Is everything.
There questions? Are there questions for Reeve Barton, please?
So you said there's about 2 months left of work on site, do you expect?
That wouldn't affect, all we need is the pump to show up in about a few working days to get you to 1.5 MGD of treatment. The rest of the stuff is wrap up. It would not prevent the town from having treated water.
Okay, and that was my question. Is it through any of that work, is there any risk that we'll need to shut the system down
No.
during that? Okay.
No, we are very close. There's, example is, the best example I can give you is like, all the pipe needs another coat of paint. It hasn't been done yet because as of today, we were disassembling the temporary pump piping and setting up the final pump piping.
Sure. But we're through the rock now?
We got through the rock, we found the rock, not a lot of it there, we found it.
Good work.
I have a question. You said possibly water coming through the plant Wednesday. When would our homeowners in town be expecting purified water or cleaner water?
You're right, in the reading between the lines in your question, it doesn't immediately arrive at their home. It goes to the elevated storage tanks, and then as those drain down during the day, it filters to everybody's home. I would say, well, CDM doesn't have your water model, so this is a guess, but I'm going to conservatively say a day.
Okay.
For the filter system, there may be some pockets of the system where water is circulating as well, and it's no longer, but generally speaking, I think your system empties each day.
Okay. Thank you.
Reed, I would agree, Commissioner Farrell. Particularly during summer, we have to fill the tanks up every day. So, when we go live, we fill the Chapel Ridge tank and then we go to our tanks. So we'll go to the 1 million gallon, we'll do the standpipe and we'll do Horton. And, with our consumption during August, which is usually one of our higher months, if we're pumping that into the system on Thursday, people will be drinking that on Friday, if not sooner. That's a great question though, about the circulation of our water. If we were during the winter, we would probably artificially lower our amount pumped because we pump about 1/2 during the winter months as we do during the summer. So knowing if we were looking at a go live of Wednesday and Thursday, we would probably just have Corey pump less into the tanks. That way we could fill the rest up with the GAC treated water.
Further questions?
Madam Mayor, if I may, with a kind of an update that's, I think, related to this. Obviously, the town's been working with Chatham Marketplace with the filtered water and with the, we had originally hoped to cease that program for Labor Day. But knowing we had a few days kind of linger on with this contract, obviously, I think Mr. Barton did a good job of explaining, the rationale behind it. Just things kind of out of our control to get some of these measures taken care of. So I worked with Evan and we're actually going to go to October 1st with that. So we want to give people a good month in case something happens with startup. Again, everyone should knock on some wood and hope that Wednesday goes very well. But there will kind of be some of those natural periods of turn on, turn off, and make sure everything runs well. So just out of an abundance of caution and just to help folks know that they can continue using that, we're planning to run to October 1st. Once we're fully running, hopefully again on Wednesday, I'll be working with Colby on some information about that, not only for the announcement of the GAC turning on, but also kind of the extinguishment of that program with Chatham Marketplace. And as I've done many times before, I big thanks to Evan Diamond and his staff there. They've been very, very helpful and beneficial to the town with that. So we can't thank them enough.
You said that was through September.
Yes, sir. So we plan to run that all the way through September, ceasing on to October 1st.
And do you know offhand how we are on the budget for that program?
Well under.
Okay.
Yeah, we originally budgeted 25,000, and our monthly expenses are somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500.
Reed, thank you so much for the explanation. I've gotten a number of questions that show how curious the town folk are about this. And one of them was on the 90%. And I realize now that I answered that incorrectly. I had understood that that's 90% refers to a kind of a 10% fudge factor once the filter medium hits breakthrough. But I'm not correct in that. I'm now remembering actually from your earlier briefing that there are certain, I believe it's the shorter chain poly and perfluorocarbon alkyl compounds that do not adhere to the carbon. And so they might break through. Is
They
that
will break through quicker, so.
Okay.
Most testing is indicated that it takes them out initially. But, might be able to work, not as sticky. They can be held onto as readily from the gap. And so, where the gap may last for a very long time for PFAS and PFOA, which are long chains. Some of the shorter chains, which for the most part, most of them do not have. We don't know if they are like the PFBS that the EPA said a limit of 2,000. They apparently don't feel it's very toxic. Or conversely, like PFAS and PFOA, they set a very low level. So we don't know what we don't know about their health impacts, but shorter chains will go through quicker. And if you were to couple the GAC, follow the GAC with an ion exchange media, you get better capture. I should preface the 90% goal removal for all PFAS compounds included a couple of those two together. It wasn't GAC by itself. It was GAC plus ions.
And just on a day-to-day practical basis, if you could help the public understand or imagine, I think that we're going to start with essentially one vessel, run that through until it is essentially saturated and the carbon filter experiences quote unquote breakthrough and the pollutants start to flow through the medium. And then we switch over to the second vessel. Is that right?
There are options on how the town's water plant staff operate it. That is one of the options. But I'll show you here. Is my cursor showing up?
Yes.
Yep.
So these tubes right here, these are small sample points. And it's just a hole in the tank with a pipe coming down so you can collect a sample right here. So the GAC media is stacked up, let's say up to here. And so we take samples from the town's water plant staff. We take samples from every port. They will monitor the level of PFAS coming down. Once they start seeing PFAS showing up here, they say, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit of, it's coming through the first couple feet of GAC, but if it's not showing up in this next port, it hasn't broken through that next layer of GAC. So you get a lot of warning. Because of these sample ports, you get a lot of warning how much time you have until they're going to break.
And we're going to likely, Corey and staff will use those ports and direct observation in addition to the calculations that were derived from our 8 months testing. Is that right?
Yes, so the pilot test gave, in a rough order, number of months that the GAC would last before you start to see breakthrough. That's a starting point, a basis point for design, but the actual frequency of having to purchase new activated carbon media will be measured. You'll measure it, you'll follow the actual data that you get off of these estimates.
Direct observations of the pollutant and, okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Bonds, to complement that, this project has been referred to as kind of a double GAC. Knowing that we were not intending for GAC and IX with this initial installation. And so the idea being that we feel like to maintain that level of efficacy, that we'll use up double the amount of GAC that we would otherwise in order to maintain that integrity of the carbon.
And then final question is, what does it physically look like once we have reached breakthrough and saturation of the media and we know that we need to swap that out? Calgon comes and does what?
Calgon will come and you can contract with another carbon supplier. A carbon supplier will come and they will remove the GAC and they take it to their facility where what happens to the GAC seems to be a moving target. There's a lot of study and science looking into what's the best thing to do with it. Iron exchange media does not get regenerated if we dispose of it, say we're going to plant it. Carbon, what I'm about to say may change tomorrow, but my understanding is that they can regenerate it. They will kill it, fire it, and release the PFAS, and they will collect that air scrubbers. I am not very savvy in how that works at all. You know, those reporter ran an article on it, reached out to us. What happened with it? My understanding is they can dispose of it. In the world before PFAS, it always was refired, saving your name on it, and it would come back. Exactly how they would fire it, where they would fire it, and how many times they would fire it, who knows?
The utilities in Wilmington that use GAC now, they have it regenerated. They actually freight it to Buffalo, New York. And so myself and some other contacts and CDM Smith was actually very helpful because Mr. Dalbigan gave me the contacts for Calgon. Calgon is looking to expand their regeneration facilities. And we are trying to, I think this would be great for the board as well, for the powers that be, both at the state and levels beyond, is I think it would be a tremendous coup for the state to lobby Calgon to put a regeneration facility in North Carolina. You know, these facilities are going to be much needed, obviously, with the EPA stuff that Mr. Barton just discussed a few moments ago. There's going to be more prevalence of these types of operations. I think we're going to be ahead of the curve and having things like this installed, because as soon as the MTLs come out, others are going to have to make these types of adjustments. We're looking at GAC right now with the Sanford water treatment plant expansion as well. And so we feel like that with North Carolina, with all the things of growth, obviously a lot of population exposure, trying to get these types of facilities, that we feel like we'd be a pretty viable candidate to have Calgon place a regeneration facility somewhere in North Carolina. I'm not sure how noxious such a thing is. I'm like Reed. I'm ignorant to the literal process, but I do know that Wilmington goes to a fair bit of expense to get it up there to get regenerated. So I think those are one of those questions that certainly a lot of the focus has been getting it put online, not being negligent to how it goes away or treated and comes back. But I think that's going to be where our mindset shifts with this project is, okay, we've got it. All right, let's find the best contracts in order to find a way to regenerate it or find some other method of disposal that the board's agreeable to.
Mm-hmm. I guess there's actually one more final question. Physically, how is it that Calgon removes it from those tanks? I hope that they don't have OSHA permit pulled to go through that manhole on the side of the tank. They're probably vacuuming it or.
No, this you see the worker, this is the Calgon employee moving up on those to the tank. They will slurry it, they will mix it with water, and they will vacuum over their trunk, that will suck it back through their water. They have a stream, they will attempt to lead out some of that water into the lagoon that you see in this. So the lagoon beside this truck is the council, that's where the wastewater goes and is treated further. I say wastewater, not Nothing with sense.
not sewer.
It's not. Really not.
Waste product from the.
It's the byproduct of the treatment process.
Right, bywater and the water process, that's what you're looking at for, is for, and so they will pull it out by slurry and put some of the water back in the unit. That's how they do it. They can fill one vessel with one truck, so it's 2 trucks. You probably won't change the bulk at the same time, though. And to the point you're making about, or I would add to the discussion about how it's disposed of. I believe the town will have lots of say in the shopping options of ways to dispose of it, how to do it. You'll write an RFP and procure services to sell and come collect your cat, your spent cat, and provide new cat. And you can write into that RFP requirements of how it's disposed of.
Including specifications about its handling and care and releases to the environment and
Yes.
to ensure that in light of the fact that we all live downstream or downwind, that we're not just putting this on someone else.
Yes. Yeah. Any questions about the broader picture, but I believe the town is, commissioners are aware that the town, CDM, the town submitted an SRF application to fund the UV portion of this system. So, yeah, eventually you'll want to add ion exchange, which will look very similar, the vessels that are half that size sitting right beside it. And then the UV will be a small building beside that. It's a 30 by 30 foot building that has UV lamps inside. So an application was submitted to the state is unfortunately right on the line of being funded, but not funded. It was a cluster of 6 projects, and then the exact same score, 2 of them were funded, 4 were not funded. Unfortunately, very close. We intend to submit the application again to look for that whole grant and loan funding to move that forward.
Yeah, so our when you're not funded in the SRF process in the first round, so the spring round, you automatically go to the second round. However, we are actually reapplying because we're reapplying with the distress utility, distress unit utility designation applied to our application to garner some of those preferential scoring to hopefully push us over into the funded side of that.
It's a very competitive round. Usually there's 150 applications. There was 650 ballpark applications. So everybody was aware that there was $500 million being, play, and everybody could have wasn't successful in looking for
All right, thank you very much. Anything further?
I do
Mr.
have
Martin?
just one final request for staff, and that is that if there is any divergence from this expectation of flow on Wednesday and operation on Wednesday, that we be known, let us know, let the board know as quickly as possible, because I got ahead of myself based on email from last week that it would be in operation on Friday. I let some folks know, and that was unfortunate that I misinformed them.
Yeah, and as you might imagine, all these days have moved that target on us, and that's why I felt like it was important not to just have a simple update for myself, but to have Reed here tonight. But point well taken on that, Commissioner Bonitz.
Thank you very much. Our next item under miscellaneous is a report to the board on the Chatham 911, 9/11 first responder memorial.
You use the microphone, be better. That way the public can see you.
Hello, Mayor and board members. Chris, didn't meet you tonight for the first time in person.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here. I want to give you a little bit of an update. Some of you may know the background behind the 9/11 memorial. A gentleman actually lived in North Chatham, worked for the state many years ago after that, wrote a letter to the airport authority. And after a lot of communication, they finally agreed to let us have a piece of land. We had a time frame to have it put up. Like a lot of other things that y'all probably deal with, when you get several people involved, or you get a full agreement. So it was bounced around all the county, finally everybody says, excuse me, Pittsboro makes sense. Then we had to figure out where to go. If you remember, there were a couple old houses that fell down, and then there was a big drop off on that thing. So the county agreed to lease the property for $1 for 99 years. So we had hundreds of loads of dirt that was donated, and another several hundred loads of rock, slag, whatever you want to call it. And from that, we got the deal going. As you may know, there was no tax dollars at all put in. No pity from politics. And Mr. J, to vouch for some of this, we kind of begged at times to get volunteers to help do it, but it was put together with first responders. It was done because they wanted it done correctly, they wanted it nice, and wanted to remember the people that lost their lives, not only first responders, but all the citizens. We were getting some donations from the survivor that were speaking to different organizations about the nation. When COVID hit, that stopped. Well, the donation since COVID hit, because he's not speaking, and for his safety, everybody else just stopped. And I think for the last, I've all ended 4 or 5 years, we have asked Pittsboro, Siler City, and Chatham County to budget $1,500 each to help pay for the bill. Well, this year, we asked them for $2,000 each. The problem is that y'all know everything's going up fast. And that's not going to cover all our stuff. And right now, we have no other income other than donations. No, hopefully we'll get a little bit of support. We're having service this year on September the 10th. Canceled last year because of COVID, last minute. But the survivor is going to be our speaker this year. I'd like to take this opportunity, if you can possibly come that day, it starts at 10 o'clock. You are invited on the 5th floor. Yeah, he was at the number 2 tower, and this beam we got come from the basement of number 2 tower. And he actually lived in Chatham County for a while after that he moved back to Delaware, which is really where his family from. Got a grandkid now, she said he had to go home. I understand that, but he is going to be a guest speaker that day. If it's okay with you, Chris, I will email you that news release is going out this week to the, well, the counties provide us with their group that they send news releases to. You follow it.
Be happy to.
All the members here, that way you'll know exactly what it is. You know, if there's any way you can support us with some donations, so we take them. Our secretary is also a town employee. She works in the police department. So it's an easy way for you to make a donation. Make it simple for you. Just talk about the police department. It's Teresa G. She is for several years. And as we move forward, if y'all can work us a little bit more in your budget, we can use it. We just bought a battery. One battery for our solar system costs us $850. We've not had a lot of that problem, but I'm confident this will be 6 years since our dedication and stuff like that. So I'm start tearing apart, tearing up, burn out. We're going the solar, similar college. We now all month bill and so forth, and you know, it's been good. Be some repairs as we go. You know, just let y'all know. We have got that insured for $250,000. That was estimated, we had to just put back somehow to it. Don't think it's going anywhere, you know, the means not, it's in 6 foot deep, 10 foot diameter, 4 3 miles. So I'm afraid it would be standing in cold town. Got to scroll there. You know, it took a lot of work, a lot of people, and also just, it was not on city property. But I think a lot of people think maybe the city done it, or maybe the county done it, the Justice Center. Understand, it was put together with volunteers. Those that have laid those papers in the middle, you know, under the weather, July, August, they know. Just also let you know, to help protect us and certainly help protect the town and county, we have $1 billion liability policy in case something happens on site with somebody. But I really think, just I need to keep everything up. It's got a sprinkler system out there, so that it runs every morning at 6 o'clock, where it doesn't bother somebody wants to come by. Trying to keep it looking good. Just spent $75 last week. Trucks and all trimmed up, ready for service in September. It pressure washed. Looks real good. Make sure it's top quality.
Can you explain why the beam is at an angle?
Thank you. So I need to bring that.
You got into all the reinforcement stuff and everybody asked like, is that thing leaning? We going to fix it or not? So I figured that that's a good story to share.
Actually, we have people come to us after things put up. Oh, I made a mistake. It's not straight. It's leaning for a reason. 11 minutes to go back to the World Trade Center. Architect exactly lay it out. And the wall is going, come the walkway this way, I guess, the right way from the circle and start down the walkway. It's got on it ground zero 444. It also is set directly to ground zero. I'm probably forgetting so much of the tape, but I want to do it. I got things to do, but if I got any questions, I'll do the best answer for you.
And I'll interject here. I asked Mr. Williams to speak to the board tonight. One, obviously Commissioner Vose, you're new to the board. You weren't on the board previously. We have some other new members that may have not received a presentation or you know, kind of a briefing of how the project came to be. Some of the particulars, you know, that's one of the things that probably should be in that onboarding packet, Mayor, of this is why the beam's slanted or crooked. One of those insider things you can share with your constituents. But one, obviously the town has supported the group, typically offsetting some of the water bill and other expenses that they have out there. I think, you know, with obviously with new board members, but also new citizens who come to town and may not realize the origin of this project and understand that they are a 501c3 and, you know, are dependent completely on donations. Certainly we've got I think a very robust VFW in town and very much engaged there. I know the fire department chips in a good bit with that location as well. So just want to give folks a little bit of backstory on it because it's very easy to just drive by and think, oh, well, that's just part of the county property. You know, there's nothing to donate to. There's nothing, it's, you know, it's just taken care of my tax bill. And so we felt like that was a necessary story to tell, obviously give a little publicity to the event on September 10th. And again, I'll be happy to share that with the board and we'll push that out through Colby, our PIO as well. So really, nothing to ask of the board from a decision standpoint. It's an informational item to learn about this project. If you know folks who may be interested in helping out, again, the town has budgeted dollars once again in this year's budget. And as you consider next year's, certainly I would encourage Mr. Williams and your folks to reach out to the board around February, March, that kind of time frame, and maybe reiterate your requests to put it in the front of the board's mind with this. But again, nothing to vote on or anything. Just wanted to put this here and give some recognition to the event in a couple weeks.
Mr. Williams, thank you for your presentation and the history and the details. I especially appreciated the interesting detail about the brass tacks on that battery and the solar power. And I was aware because Commissioner Farrell had briefed me early on my tenure on this board about the extensive volunteer input that made this happen. I just want to express admiration for that particular element in the project, as it, I think, is a very powerful symbol of desire for energy independence and self-reliance, which are values that I very much share and respect. And I think there's certainly a connection to be drawn there between that and the horrible, fateful event. And so I certainly, as one board member, want to continue to support the project and greatly admire that continued effort to have energy independence. So, thank you.
All understand the flag is lit all night long. And we have two lights that are focused out there. One that we show them. Yeah, they shine on the beam at an angle like this to keep it lit. But the backside, we kind of blind people figure that the first thing that makes sense. So we got it from the roadside where you can see that. And I guess I've been on board now 9 years, president for the last 7. I'm for a while, I retired after 40 years. Volunteer fire. Yeah, I do know too. I believe in that. It's Shipp captain on the Pittsboro Fire Department, and one is a paramedic in Smaller City, and also a volunteer fireman. So I guess it comes up in your blood. But I'm going to hang to help see that it's took care of it, done right where they can. If anything comes up, feel free to let me know. Chris got my or just got cell number on it and an email. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Billy.
Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you
Williams.
very much.
And also, may I ask again, on the 10th, is it 10 o'clock or what time is it that the
10.
10 o'clock on the 10th? Very good. Thank you very much.
Some people don't know why we did this, but church and try to put that out. We don't fit our guest schedule, so we decided that best thing on Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
I think now is a good time to take a break. Before we go into our new business, we are moving over to matters from our consent agenda and then have 2 other matters. So let's take a 5-minute break.
Sure, yeah, so,
Number two, the Northwood MUPD
mhm.
would be then first. Did you have some questions on that?
I do, thank you. And I'm not sure if relevant staff are available. Cheney Phelps, I suppose, would be the person, but Mr. Kennedy, you may be able to handle this as well. I was intrigued by the portion of the requested deviations with regard to lighting.
Mhm.
And the reason is that there was so much time and effort and care and concern exerted in 2016 and 2017 by the Additional Elements Review Committee about lighting regulations, town's ordinance for lighting, and the additional element for Chatham Park, which I recognize is not what we're talking about at the moment. But with regard to the MUPD, number one, it just didn't make sense. I went back and reviewed the planning board meeting recording, and it didn't make sense to me then. And it occurs to me that if we're modeling revisions after the town of Cary, I think I can safely say that's kind of exactly what the Additional Elements Review Committee didn't want to have happen.
Okay.
So protection of dark skies was at that time, I think that was the single most broadly shared concern across the entirety of the political spectrum that I had ever seen in this town. So at a minimum, I'd like to ask staff to go back and try harder. At a maximum, I'd very much like to ask the ECO-CP to consider something more ambitious. And in particular, I'd very much like to see adaptive controls. If Walmart can do it and make money at it, I think other developers can as well. So the lights should dim when there's no activity, brighten when cars return, or bikes or pedestrians are nearby. And that adaptive control function, I know it's commercially available. I'm told that it provides an additional 20% energy savings after the savings from LED lights. So that's on top of those savings. So I think that it's cost effective. I'd like to see it happen. And I'm not inclined to support these changes that just don't make sense. So.
Commissioner Bonds, if I ask a clarifying question, would that?
Sure.
Are you grouping the whole list of requests or just simply striking that one from the grouping?
Well, I'll ask if there are others on the board who have any other thoughts or concerns about this set of deviations, but my primary concern was that one.
I did look at those and as I remember, they were buffer and parking deviations and but I don't remember anything that stood out to me on that. What about anybody else have thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that from the discussion on the planning board, and my understanding from that was that it was just a typo essentially in that table of how light level is referred to. And that was the description from the developer and that planning staff
Yeah.
agreed with.
But as I read this, even that explanation doesn't make sense to me
Okay.
because it's a min to a min. And that just boggles my brain. So either I need somebody to explain that or it needs to be reworked. And after all, I don't think we should be modeling our policies after Cary.
And I guess also, I think this is more stringent than what we currently have in the UDO. So anything, I'm not, I wouldn't be inclined to ask for anything more stringent than what is already more stringent than the UDO. But we should potentially look at this for future changes to the UDO also.
Agree.
But they're already going above and beyond what we require everyone else to do.
Well, my point about adaptive lighting is not that it's stringent. I think it's actually an encouragement to technological advancement that saves the developer money. So.
Well, I think it would be a option to look at what you're talking about, the adaptive lighting. And maybe perhaps that you can enlighten them in reference to that. But that would be something to look at and just get their opinion about.
I agree with Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin.
John Bonitz, do you want to make a motion to put that forward to another date with perhaps a maybe what are you thinking, with a report from Jamie?
I mean, I don't know if Jane's available. I'm okay with it as is also, but I would say at most, we should not approve that section of revisions, but approve the rest of the revisions, if that's what people want to do. Is Janie on?
Janie is available for any questions from the board on that. But wanted to see where the board's conversation went and see whether Janie providing anything for the board or answering any questions would be beneficial. So
I apologize for this coming up now, but a specific item, I guess.
Oh. Would you like to hear from Janie? Okay. Janie's unmuted, so I think she can talk whenever.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So like Kyle had, or Commissioner Shipp had said, they're mainly just clarifications. I'll just start off and go through them chronologically very quickly. The first one with the stacking requirements, that was one that I had actually found and brought that up to the CE group. And it was unsure of how that got in there, but they wanted to use the other stacking requirements that are listed in the document because those are more stringent. So that's why that's being taken out. As far as the lighting, yes, the CE group, the applicant did mention that they were, that these were not necessarily town of Cary standards, but that, oh, I'm sorry, my camera's turned around. Not just town of Cary standards, but these are also from the IES and A handbook, which that's lighting standards that are used across the whole country. And there is, from what I've discovered, a newer edition than the 8th one, but that's what a lot of jurisdictions use in their lighting standards. And then for the landscaping portion of it, I did talk to the ECE group about that as well. And I didn't see any discrepancy. I was able to decipher it, but they still wanted to clarify it so that it matched text earlier in the document.
And for the board's benefit too, in addition to Janie, Kurt Bradley is available on the call. He just raised his hand under the attendee section. So I think he can address any questions directly to him as well.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Did we want to proceed to vote on the whole package, or still give consideration to the lighting section?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve all of these deviations with the exception of number 3, amend section 11A5, illumination standards table 11.1, table 11.2. Omitting that section, I can support the rest of the deviations.
Well, Janie or Kirk, can you explain why the table shows minimum to minimum? I think that was a point of confusion.
That's what it's directly from the IES&A handbook. Kirk might be able to explain more, but that's what I had seen, that it's directly from the handbook.
And is he on and available?
He's an attendee. I just contacted Heather, asking to promote Kirk to a panelist. There he goes. Mr. Bradley just switched over, so he should be able to talk whenever he pleases.
Yes, this is Kirk. Could you do that with Mark Ashness as well? I believe he can do it. Janie answered the question that I was going to say. I appreciate you making me a panelist, but Janie articulated, we brought this in line. I heard someone earlier, I believe it was Commissioner Shipp, say that, our standards, these standards are higher than what the UDO is on lighting and other things, Commissioner Bonitz. So we felt like we found these discrepancies and wanted to get them clarified, and felt like the standards that we submitted, or the intention way back in 17 and 18, were in the direction that the board and everybody said. We just apparently had a few typos. And so this is really a clarifying element so that it can be applied where we found, just as Janie did a superb job explaining. But if you can let Mark Ashness in, he can explain anything else. That would be terrific if he has anything else to add.
Mr. Bradley, I'll presume Mr. Ashness is probably the phone number under attendees, because I don't see anything with Mark Ashness. It's a
Yeah, sounds like he was listening, not watching it video. You're correct.
So Heather, I will promote that 1984 number. Oh, there's Mark. I see him now. There we go. Thank you, Heather. Mr. Ashes, if you want to respond to compliment Mr. Bradley's comments or Ms. Phelps' comments.
I'm on the call if you've let me speak.
You're live, Mark.
You're speaking
Great.
right now.
Great. Good evening, board members and staff. Mark Ashness with the C Group. And to Janie's point, so basically some of the original lighting information came directly from the old Pittsboro zoning code. And there were some mins and maximums and then averages also. And some of those were really conflicting, to be honest with you. And so what we did is we looked at some of the other codes in the region, in addition to that Kerry was mentioned as one of them. But basically the standards of today now are driven towards the minimum, and obviously there's still ratios that have to be met as well. But there are minimum levels of lighting that are absolutely needed for safety purposes. And so the revisions that we've made are really dealing with that to make sure that what we have is appropriate and is consistent with the current regulations that are really utilized nationally, as Jamie mentioned.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashness and Mr. Bradley, for the additional comments. But I think that it's very clear, because of precedent in other areas, that safety can be addressed with dynamic lighting as well, or as they call it, adaptive lighting. And that's what I'm asking for. And I'm using this opportunity for the fact that if it doesn't make sense to me, and I've studied policy, even if we are referring to someone else's manual, that manual, I need that to make sense for me to approve it. And a minimum to a minimum doesn't make sense from what I'm hoping to do is throttle the amount of night lighting. And so if y'all are willing to just say, okay, let's go with adaptive lighting, that'll cut down to 20% at night when there's nobody around, I'm fine with it. We'll approve it right now.
That's a tall order, to be candid with you. I don't think many jurisdictions in the country have that type of constraint associated with it. I think it would be reasonable to expect us to look at scenarios where we could do that, utilize that technology. But across the board, I'm not sure that's the correct direction that the town of Pittsboro would want to take, nor any other municipality in the region.
Yeah, and we have insurance standards too, Commissioner Bonitz, and that's where most of these safety standards that have been developed nationally, as Janie and Mark have both mentioned, have come from, and that trying to minimize the candle power and all the sort of things that have been mentioned here. But at the same time, I would say that there are risk management issues that which is what Mark was talking about with the management. And so to do that on the fly would be very difficult. We're certainly willing to take it and consider it. You cited Walmart. We'll take a look at that and see, but it seems a little unfair to do this on the fly, given the standard that's out there. If that's something that wants to be considered, I think a lot of study ought to be done on it. I realize you don't have to approve it based on that, but I don't know that that is a standard that has been adopted. And there's a lot of implications from doing that. Walmart's a very big enterprise that self-insures and has their own sort of standards that they can develop and sort of force industry to do things. People like ourselves and most of our tenants aren't in a position to do that. That would be my concern comment, because this is really, you're trying to force us to push past minimum standards. And then if there's litigation involved, we're the responsible party on that. If we are considered too dark because of a failure of the adaptive lighting or something else, that would be my comment, sitting here trying to debate this tonight.
Something else I would like to add is that this is also an item as a minor deviation, and these are essentially clarifications. And so I also understand the concerns on both sides. I would feel as staff reviewing that, if this is another lighting standard to be added, this would go past a minor deviation and essentially change not necessarily the scope of the plan, but it may have to essentially go through a rezoning process to add additional standards. And that's not the purpose of these, it's called a minor deviation, but it's really clarifications of the existing text.
I think these might be things to look at. I know we have the green development incentives coming up. I think that technology is probably a good one to look at for that. And I think that, we should probably also look at the standards on our UDO and bring them up to some of the MUPDs and PDDs that are in town. But I don't think that this minor deviation, as Ms. Phelps said, is appropriate to advocate for more technology, although I'm strongly in favor of dark sky, and I think that this maintains that standard.
Well, this was something that was discussed extensively in 2017, 2018. And I thought that I had agreement with Chuck Smith about controllable lighting, and language was inserted back in again that undermined that and created a loophole. I'm asking that strong consideration be given to adaptive lighting, which utilizes controls. This technology has been commercially available for more than a decade. It's well proven. I'm sure that there are other entities, actually municipalities and campuses that have used the technology, because otherwise the U.S. Department of Energy would not be promoting it. and pointing out that there's enough of these instances out there that they can document 20% cost savings over LED street lighting. So I very much appreciate your willingness to look at it. And I reiterate my motion.
And the motion to restate is the approval of the minor deviations in buffering and parking, but not the ones in lighting. Is that correct? All right. Having restated the motion, is there a second to Mr. Bonitz's motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Commissioner Vose. Is there further discussion?
I just mentioned this. I feel pretty comfortable with the staff handling this issue, and I feel comfortable with it. Is the MUPD? It's a minor deviation, and I feel like we should move forward with this. I'm not going to vote. I'm going to vote for the approval of this.
I agree. I wouldn't support the current motion.
Well, then, let's call the question then and go ahead and, unless there are further comments, to vote.
I do have a comment.
You do, I'm sorry.
I just, a question. Ms. Phelps, you said this is the standard. Is this the standard for the state? Can you explain that part again, please?
So I'm sure Mark or Kurt can explain
Okay.
it better than
All
I
right.
can, but it's a handbook that's used nationally, the IESNA handbook. It's a lot of words. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it is, I did look it up, and one of the requests I had made to the CE group was, can you update it to the most recent IESNA handbook? And their lighting engineer had gotten back in touch with me and said, this is the most current one that's being used.
I'll just speak briefly. This is again, Mark Ashton. This is very similar to the trip generation. When we're looking at new projects, whether it's in Pittsboro or other jurisdictions, you'll have a traffic analysis done, and that traffic analysis takes into account the existing traffic and the growth of that traffic. And then it also takes into account the proposed uses. And there's a national document that basically says, this type of use, whether it be a commercial small building or a specific commercial building or townhomes, they generate X number of trips during the day. They generate X number of trips during the peak hour in the afternoon and the peak hour in the morning. These lighting standards are the very same thing. These are the sort of the nationally recognized standards for lighting.
Okay, right, thank you. Did you look at the adaptive lighting by chance, just to research it as a FYI type situation?
We haven't at this time, but I can tell you there's several, lots to be developed in Northwood, and certainly there may be areas where the adaptive lighting could be utilized, and so that's certainly something we could do, going forward as each individual site plan comes into the town.
Okay.
And I'd just say too, I'm very familiar with lighting controls. That is my industry and day job. And I think it's appropriate for the green standards that are coming to us to look at something like that. But I don't think it's an appropriate addition to this change now.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just add that from my perspective, whether it's appropriate or inappropriate to this, we're not retrofitting old technology to fit a new purpose. We're building new. So I think we can lean into new technology and do a little bit better. And that's why I'm supporting this idea.
Let us then take a vote on the motion, which, to restate again, is to approve the buffering and parking aspects of the minor deviations and not the lighting aspects. Those in favor of the motion as stated and seconded by Commissioner Vose, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
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 The motion is defeated then 2-3. And is there an alternate motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented by staff.
Second.
Motion by Kyle Shipp.
Could I add something? Commissioner?
Sure.
Kyle,
Yeah.
could you add, they indicated that they would consider looking at the adaptive lighting? Would it be possible to add that into your motion? Or no?
Yeah, let me think. I'm not sure how.
I don't know.
How to, because it's not going to be,
Okay,
I guess I'll make a motion to approve the minor deviations as proposed by staff and ask the applicant to look into the upgraded controls.
okay.
All right, you've heard the motion. Is there a seconded by Jay Farrell?
Yeah, I'll second, but I believe I'm not sure if Mr. Who was it? He said that they would look at it in the next upcoming lots. So
Yeah.
pretty much already said. I'd be happy with it. But I will second.
All right, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item from reserved from the consent agenda was the future land use plan steering committee.
Yes, okay, so I had offered a list that went into staff's memo, and I need to apologize to the board that I omitted an important name, important for the diversity that would be added by this person, and that is Mr. Norman Clark. And I would like to simply ask that staff's list with the addition of Mr. Norman Clark be offered for the steering committee. Again, this is the steering committee for the Town of Pittsboro Future Land Use Plan Update.
All right. And did you want to make that a motion, Mr. Bonitz?
Yes.
Just before you do that, the other minor change to go with that is that we changed, I think it's paragraph 2 to 17 members or to
Yes.
whatever.
So I move that we change the text of the resolution with respect to the number of persons on the committee, and that we add Norman Clark to that list that staff presented and the public has seen on the website.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Bonnet, seconded by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin. Is there further discussion? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Established under our agenda on new business is the recruitment of the town manager. Who would like to handle that?
Probably not me.
Well, I have kept you all apprised to the idea that there were several recruitment groups that were recommended that you all used last time, or that you thought would be an appropriate group to use this time. And so this particular recruitment event is going to, there was one group that from Chapel Hill that we did not investigate this time, but there was the Developmental Associates, and there was also the
Triangle J Council of Governments.
Triangle J Council of Governments. Thank you. So those two firms were contacted, and they both gave proposals. The proposal from Developmental Associates, I believe, has the amount that is shown below in budget item in new business number 2, talking about the budget. And then I failed to bring my documentation, so I'm not absolutely certain about the proposals that we had for that, and I apologize greatly. I did not.
The Development Associates was $25,000 for their proposal.
Thank you, Mayor Perry. I very much appreciate the effort that you've expended so far on this. And I'll just express the opinion that I have great confidence in the Developmental Associates and feel that it was very much worth the money last time. And I would strongly support going with that same firm this time. I'm very much eager to hear other commissioners' thoughts, though.
I certainly agree with that. Development Associates was very thorough in their research and all the information they provided to us. So I was very happy with all that they did present to us. And I certainly support Development Associates.
I agree. If they'll guarantee the same results, but a longer term, I'm happy to go with them.
I was waiting for that.
I think there is a law against involuntary servitude as the town manager.
We'll fix that in the next contract.
That's right.
It depends on your influence over Shorty. I don't know.
All right. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we go with the proposal from Development Associates.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed. Motion carries unanimously to utilize the Developmental Associates, which brings us then to the second item under new business, which is to increase line item 23,750 with respect to that contracted town manager recruitment.
Go ahead. Motion to increase the amount from $23,750 to $25,000 for Development Associates. It's a budget amendment.
I'll second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Shipp. Is there further discussion on that budget amendment? If not, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. While we're here, let us then also note that in the meantime, there has been a communication that indicates that the review of the interim manager candidate that has come to us through the League of Municipalities is able to come on Thursday to interview at 3 o'clock. Is that correct? And so the question would be that we would make ourselves available for that. It seemed as though that was the best day for several of you that wrote and said that you thought that that you gave us your schedules, and so I think that is going to take place this Thursday. The question, I suppose, for Paul Misc would be, would it be appropriate for, is it 6 of one, half dozen of another, to either not adjourn this meeting and continue it on Thursday? Or would it be better to do a special notice to have this meeting separately noticed on Thursday.
Well, it would be a recess of this meeting if, to do it that way. But I think it's probably cleaner. You got plenty of time to do the special meeting. So I just, adjourn this and put your notice up 48 hours before your other meeting, your special meeting. And the only purpose for the special meeting would be the interview candidate.
And that would be in closed session.
Yes, ma'am.
And then coming out into open session to report any things to be made a decision.
Yeah, yes, if the purpose of the meeting is to consider the appointment of an interim manager, that would include both an interview or discussion or whatever. And if you all decide to make a decision, you can certainly do that.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, I would add, when that selection is made, presuming that the interim will be paid, there'll be an open session, the board have to have the contract approved in open session. Whether that is ready to go for Thursday or not. If a selection is made on Thursday, that's certainly something we can add to the September 12th agenda, or call another special meeting to have that authorized prior to the 12th of September, since there's a few days lag there, certainly. But that is optimistic thinking. Correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Paul said.
We may need a budget amendment for the contract for the interim manager as well. And I would offer that could be done retroactively as well. Obviously, we're at the beginning of the budget year. The salary line item in administration 4,200 still has a robust amount of money. So that may be a budget that may be somewhat in arrears upon completion of that interim term.
All right. So, so that would conclude our business for this evening as agendaed. And if there are no other comments or concerns, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Can we make the round on concerns?
Sure. Commissioner Farrell, we usually start with you for.
I don't have just a concern. I just want to thank the engineering staff for the specs on the reclaimed water. I went through that pretty heavily. And the only question I had was about the backflow preventers. I think it said there's no provision for any kind of testing for backflow preventers. Is that correct, for reclaimed water?
I can't answer that question offhand.
Yeah, that's just, it said on page 13, there was some kind of, some plumbing code, but most backflow preventers have to be tested and inspected.
Correct.
But you're not going to have any cross connection. So you shouldn't have backflow going in the total.
Okay. Right. Okay, but potable water still has backflow.
Right. Well, I think what Mr. Misc is saying that when we have a backflow preventer off of our distribution lines for potable water, because we don't want, your irrigation or your restaurant flow to go back into the potable system. Reclaim is sewer that's been cleaned up. So we're less concerned about you contaminating our sewer that's been reclaimed versus our potable water that matriculates elsewhere in the system.
Okay, thank you. So it was very interesting. That was pretty interesting reading that on some old reclaimed water.
I've worked a lot with purple pipe, but it says that a backflow preventer is not required for the reclaim service, but if you have reclaim and potable, you have to have a backflow on the potable to keep them from cross contamination.
I'm sure Kent and Morgan will be happy to hear that you enjoyed that read.
Thank you.
Shipp, would you have additional concerns to express?
Just the only comment on the setup here, don't like the stage. And it is kind of hard to turn and look at engage with the audience or the speakers out there with this position. But appreciate all the staff's continued work as we continue to move around and adjust. And likely soon we'll get some more public here. But appreciate you being here.
Commissioner Vose?
I have nothing to add.
Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin.
No, I don't have anything to add, but it is a little shaky up here.
Yeah, I keep remembering somebody fell off of this last year or the year
Oh,
before. So,
Goodness.
Commissioner Bonitz.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I'll echo those concerns about the meeting set up with qualifying with great appreciation because I recognize there was a significant amount of effort that went into it and particularly for the staff of the building. And we've already had a conversation about a different exploring possibilities for the monitor here. I think if we can help with a lower monitor, then we can change things around so we don't have to be perched up so high as a board. Thank you again, staff and staff of the building. Mr. Kennedy, I was particularly curious about legal correspondence with the Chatham Park investors regarding the dedication of acreage for the large regional sports complex. And I would just ask that enter the public record before your departure, whether that's presentation to the board or however. I'd like to make sure that continues to receive proper attention from staff and board as quickly as possible. And yeah, and if you have anything to add on it in terms of information now, I'm happy to hear.
No, I just, with regard to that particular item, just Katie and I working through that one. As I said before, Mr. Eagle had delivered that to the town a few weeks ago. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have that on your next agenda. And I spoke with representatives from Chatham Park last week, and they were also eager to have that approved. So I think there's a mutual expression of having that ratified on both sides.
Very good. And final request before your departure is I'd very much appreciate you revising your manager's memo on the bonus allocation questions to reflect the additional historic record that I shared with you.
About revising my memo, can you elaborate on what you're envisioning there?
Sure. Yeah, your memo didn't reflect the events that happened prior to those documents that you were able to uncover. And my correspondence back to you illuminated farther back, and I would like you to capture that in a revised version of manager's memo.
I would offer that you submit that to the board and have the board accept that.
Well, are there any particular items in there that you would dispute or have concerns about?
No, I mean, when we had that conversation last, there was the conversation of providing additional information. The information was sent to the board. I mean, I can simply put that into there, but I'm perhaps I'm not just failing at this hour, but I'm trying to figure out how that is pertinent to amending that memo to correct that.
Well, I believe that your memo as it stands is not an accurate reflection of the historic record. And my intent with my correspondence, which the board received and had opportunity to comment on, was that allowing your memo to stand is not an accurate reflection of the historic record.
Okay, I'll see what I can put together and have that on the September 12th agenda.
Thank you.
Well, in thinking of it too, I have two minor things, and one of them has to do with the fact that as we were meeting, I realized that comments that I had regarding the minutes that were approved in the consent agenda tonight. There was a statement in those minutes that I had that I was working with the property owner, Dan Deacon of the Atlas Boone property, on remedying the issues. Well, I met with him and he was still hoping to qualify for historic preservation for the renovations, but the nuance in the minutes was that I was working with Dan Deacon to remedy the issues, and I'm not. So those were passed tonight, and I regret that I did not. I had sent an email to Chris Kennedy this afternoon, and perhaps it was just too late to be able to incorporate those changes. It's a minor thing, but it's a nuance as much as anything. I don't think he's been particularly cooperative, and I agree that with the new dilapidated property ordinance that we passed, that we all said was going to be sort of notified that he should get going with that property, and I don't think anything has happened. And the other thing that was of concern to me was the fact that I had met with the Habitat folks this past week, and they're trying to do a renovation on a house that currently has 1 bedroom, and they're trying to seek development into taking this house down, but substituting a 2-bedroom house that complies with the Habitat regulations. And so because this current existing house is permitted for 1 bedroom, they would need, before they could make this a viable project, they would need another bedroom's worth of sewer, which is 120 gallons a day, which seemed like such a small amount that Habitat really was very interested in going ahead and seeking the board's approval on a very small allocation like this, so that they would know whether they could proceed in this project. One of the things they were particularly pleased with through the years was that even during COVID, they were able to keep their full construction staff employed. Now, as we heard, Siler City's under no more sewer. We are out of sewer. And Goldston is out of sewer, or the connection to Goldston has not been completed. And so the question was, would it be possible to get from the board an approval that this worthy and very small amount should be dedicated to Habitat. I don't know exactly where we are on what's left, but 120 sounds like such a very small amount. And that kind of promise to Habitat would be very, very gratefully received, and allow them to go forward then in their planning process. And I'd spoken to Commissioner Vose about this as we were coming in this evening. And do you want to speak to the board about what your thought was about the allocation of sewer upcoming when we're in a situation of distress, that it be something that if you were doing affordable housing, that you would have first opportunity.
Some dedicated capacity.
Yeah.
Mayor Perry, if I may offer on that one, we have no capacity. We do not have 120 gallons to allocate. We do not have 1 gallon to allocate. We are over our, if you recall, a few meetings ago back in June, Mr. Kent Jackson, our engineering director, provided a report to the board about our current status. We also had the board adopt a more modern allocation procedure. The previous one, or the most recent prior to that, was from October of 2019. The 2019 version had the board allocating up to 110% of our plant capacity. Our permit, which the plant capacity is 750,000 gallons a day. That's the design. I think our functional capacity is probably a little bit less than that. The 110% capacity would take that to 825,000 gallons a day. Our permit capacity for with the state is 675,000 gallons a day. We have allocated more than that amount. So we have no allocation to give.
But I was also understanding that Chatham Park was going to be leading a effort to get the numbers of gallons per bedroom re-examined, and that was going to free up some capacity, whether it was for their allocation or for whether it would be something that would apply across the board. I don't recall, but is that has there been any change in the state level of bedroom to gallon calculation?
Chatham Park has that already authorized. That's factored in, and most of that is sewer that is tributary to their plant. Our plant, and I've worked with our engineering department on this, as well as our wastewater folks at the treatment plant, of understanding what our capacities truly are. The board may recall the plant size really hasn't changed. Back in 2011, that was believed the functional capacity of the plant was 400,000 gallons. That's when the town authorized another EQ basin at the wastewater plant. We have days now where we are borderline overrunning the plant. So it has been my opinion that we do not support any additional flow reductions because we have made a bet that paper flow will not equal tributary flow. And for any of those that, and that bet is made upon the assumption that paper does not equal tributary flow. And if the flow reduction is granted, then the delta between the adjusted paper flow and the real tributary flow is thinner or more close, and therefore our bet is more tenuous than it's not. I have discussed with Jamie McLaurin and Kent Jackson on our team that until I hear Jamie say that he can abundantly take care of any flow reductions, again, as long as I'm in my position, I will not support one. My signature is required on those documents. And so until I hear from my staff that we can take care of that and not subject the town to notice of violation and financial penalty, I have not heard that to date. That it would be my opinion and my recommendation that we not proceed forward with that.
And I think when we say we're out of sewer capacity, we are at negative sewer capacity. We've surpassed the amount. But I do think something we will need to do soon as a board is a revision of our sewer allocation policy with the hope that we will at some point have more sewer capacity. And I think that is where we would highlight our priority for affordable housing in those revisions. Because there's going to be a lot of people wanting what is still going to be a little sewer capacity when we get more sewer capacity. So we've got to deal with how that's going to work. And I think a critical point in that may be, or would likely be, submitting a request for sewer allocation. And then we'll need to deal with how we deal with requests in queue. But I think it's an unfortunate situation that we're in. As you said, Salt City's in, Golson's in. Everyone is in the same situation of not having capacity. And I think we're taking steps towards correcting that. I think all of us are, but.
Yes, that's definitely something to keep in mind on allocation of the in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
And just to your other point, Mr. Misc, how would we correct approved minutes? Just a motion?
You can just readopt them.
Okay. I'll make a motion to readopt the approved minutes with the mayor's corrections.
Okay.
Second.
Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I have one. Did we make a time for Thursday?
3 o'clock?
Sure.
Is that correct?
Does that work?
Yeah. I must have overlooked it. I didn't hear any time.
It was sometime that afternoon.
Okay. And then where's the location?
That's what I was going to ask. Location.
Location.
I think the town hall board would be fine if you. were
What's
one of
the
that.
status of our downtown?
If there's furniture.
Town hall.
Clarify space and put that in the notice
Okay.
and certainly relay that to the board. So we're planning on, Colby's already taken notes. He and I have given the nonverbal cues. Then we'll do that for Thursday at 3 p.m. and we'll select a destination for the board to hold that and communicate that with the board and Mr. Worsley as well.
Thank you.
And I have one final comment, and that is for some reason, either the arrangement or the microphones or both have really created for me a very difficult time hearing. And so I hope we can make sure that that doesn't happen next time. Did we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.